We are here with Rosa Duran from Miss Mitchell's 5th period class talking about the book Abundance of Katherines. What did you like the most about the story?
What I think I liked the most about the story was that it wasn't typical cliched story, like your typical teenage romance story with two popular teenagers in high school who date and fall in love with each other and then experience heartbreak. It was sort of about a quirky teenager who's his own way and is himself and sort of odd, named Collins. He wants to be a genius and wants to be known for it and appreciated for it. And then there's Lindsay, who isn't really popular, but she's well known, and she has a boyfriend who doesn't really treat her very well or appreciate her the way he should, and she settles for it.
Can you summarize the story?
The story really begins when Collins experiences another heartbreak by another Catherine. He's dated 19 Catherines and counting. After the heartbreak, Collins doesn't really want to stay in a depressed state at home all the time with his parents and just with his best friend. So him and his best friend Hanson decide to leave their hometown and go on a road trip so he can let go of this recent heartbreak. And they end up in Gunshot, Tennessee, where they meet Lindsay for the first time at Gunshot's General Store in Tennessee, and end up living and working with her and her mom for their company. After Lindsay breaks up with her boyfriend TOC, known as the other Collins, her and Collins start becoming close and become good friends, and then after that they sort of date each other and fall in love.
What connection can you make to the story?
I think a connection I can really make to this story is another novel I read about two teenagers. One, the boy named Park, who isn't himself around his friends and wants them to really like him. And then he meets Eleanor, who is known as weird, I guess you could say, or misfit, and she starts to really like him and he starts to really like her, and he is himself around her and he knows that he appreciates her, but then the relationship soon ends when Eleanor leaves. And the connection that I can really make is that Park is a lot like Collins. Park cared about Eleanor, and he cared about her enough to let her go and help her get out of the horrible environment she was in. And Collins is really like that because he'll start to really care about someone he's dating, and then soon enough he'll care more about them than they do about him, and they'll break up with him.
Can you state the theme of the story?
I think the story had more than one theme. It goes through a lot of experiences in the story, and two of the major themes that I got from the book was heartbreak is inevitable and happiness. Even though the two are complete opposites, you can't get happiness from a heartbreak. It's because every time Collins was in a relationship, he always had a theorem about dumpies and dumpers and who would be dumped earlier in the relationship and when it would happen, and he always labeled himself as being the one dumped. And so he always knew that a heartbreak was going to come with each Catherine he's dated, all 19 of them breaking up with him and him having heartbreak. And he always knew that was going to happen because of his theorem, so he was always ready for it, and it was unavoidable for him. And happiness, I want to believe that's another thing for it, because even though you can tell early on in the book that Collins was really unhappy with the way he is, especially with the way he would always try to make Hanson that way too, later on in the story when he's finally in Gunshot, Tennessee and can be himself around Lindsay and her mom and Hanson, he genuinely starts to become happy. And I think Gunshot, Tennessee, and getting away from all the Catherines and the negativity in his life and going there and meeting Lindsay helped him a lot with being more happier.
How can the theme of this story connect to your life or everyday life?
I think the theme of this story can connect to everyday life is because every day someone will experience a heartbreak, someone new, or they'll experience someone leaving them or dying or just moving away. And heartbreak really is inevitable because it'll happen sometime, and that's something that everyone will have to deal with and have to experience, just like Collins and everyone else does. And like Collins, you can try and you can stay depressed, or you can go out and experience new things so that you aren't depressed all the time and you can be more happy. And I think happiness is just a key in heartbreak, so that after you really experienced it, you can move on and won't be in a depressed state or won't keep running into it. You'll just become happy and you'll learn to move on from the heartbreak. And that's what I learned from An Abundance of Catherine by John Green.